Morning students, I hope I am audible. If I am audible, please do let me know. I hope you can see the video as well. We'll be starting the session in a minute or so. We are Ekcel Academy based out of Mysore, Karnataka. So now if you are studying CS course, or if you intend to even take up CS course, and if you're clueless or if you don't have too much idea about what exactly this course is all about, and you wish to know more about the course, please do get in touch with us. All you have to do is just visit our website, which is mentioned on the visuals, and also the link is there in the description. All you have to do is just go to www.ekcelacademy, that is Ekcel Academy with K in Excel.com, and sign up. Of course, it is free of cost. You don't have to pay anything for that. By signing up on our website, you get all the goodies. That is, you'll get notes for certain subjects. Then there'll be quizzes, and there'll be constant updates as well with respect to CS course. Whenever the institute makes some changes, we'll update there as well. And tips and tricks for exam preparation will also be there. So I would suggest you to sign up. Of course, if you are a CSEET student, then the entire course is available for free of cost. All you have to do is just once again sign up there. Now in this crash course, which we have been conducting since few days now, we will be able to cover not all the aspects of CSEET, because we have less time on hand and the exams are fast approaching. But if at all you are interested in watching each of those chapters arranged neatly as per the syllabus, then I would suggest please do go there, visit the website. You will find all the chapters there chronologically arranged, so you don't have to worry about sorry about that. So that is one thing which you can do. Anyway, let's having said that, let's start this session now. Of course, there will be mock tests as well if you sign up on the website. So that is something which I suggest you do take up, because before appearing for the mock test, before appearing for the final exam, it is always useful to appear for few mock tests, so that you will know what exactly or the kind of environment there will be in case of exams. Because preparing is one thing, but actually writing the exam is totally different thing. So mock tests will help you a lot that way. Anyway, let's get into the subject. Now, of course, according to the timetable, today is economic and business environment. Before we proceed further, what we'll do is we'll look into the syllabus first, then we'll see what exactly we can do today. So now, as you can see here, it is paper 3 of the CSEET syllabus. Now, what is the objective according to the institute? The objective, or rather they expect you to understand the concepts on micro and macro economics with a focus on Indian economic system. So the focus is on Indian economic system, but they expect you to understand micro and macro economic systems. Then they also say to test understanding on various crucial elements of business environment. Okay, that is also there. Anyway, that is the latter part of this subject. We will come to that later. The total marks awarded for this particular topic or subject is 50, but it has been split into two. Economics will fetch you 25 and business environment 25 marks. Again, if you look at the economic syllabus, for the same 25 you have to study more chapters. For example, the first chapter is all about basics of demand and supply and forms of market competition, wherein you will study theory of demand, equilibrium price, elasticity of demand, supply, etc. Then there is forms of market competition as well. Then we have national income, accounting and related concepts. So GDP, GNP, etc. All those things are mentioned in chapter 2. Then we come to union budget. What are the key terminologies used in the budget? What is revenue and capital budget? What are the components of budget? What is fiscal deficit? All those things will be mentioned, or rather you will learn all those things in Indian Union budget. Then we have financial markets, overview of financial ecosystem, key facets of Indian financial system. All those things are there in what is that chapter 4. Then we have Indian economy. So we are looking at agricultural economy, primary economy, secondary economy, tertiary, etc. So all these things in last chapter, that is chapter 5. Then we'll shift to business environment. So we have to study chapter up to chapter 5 or 5 chapters for 25 marks. And when it comes to business environment, we will have to study only 3 chapters for the same 25 marks. There is entrepreneurship scenario. What exactly is the situation now in India with respect to entrepreneurship? Then the business environment as such, what are the various factors influencing business environment and types of environment. Then finally we have key government institutions. So Niti Aayog, SEBI, RBI, MCA, things like that. So this is your syllabus broadly with respect to economics and the business environment. Now let's start with the first chapter itself. Let's move on. What I've done is I've downloaded the reference material. I'll be using the same reference material because it is far more easier, because you also will be having the same reference material. We'll just look into the topics here, and wherever necessary I will try to explain in detail. Now, as I said, the first chapter is about basics of demand and supply and forms of market competition. So there are various topics which they are covering. First of all, demand is there, then we have supply, and finally market competition. So first let us look at the demand. Now what is the demand? I'm sure you would have already studied or you would be aware of this, but let us go through this quickly. Demand is an economic principle referring to a consumer's desire, they say. So you want something. Let's say you are, let's say I want to buy the latest gadget. So I have the desire to buy that latest gadget released by, let's say, Samsung now. Samsung has come up with some new what is that, Galaxy phone. So if you are an Android phone fan, you will say, no, I'm really intending to buy this Android phone. So now there is this desire to purchase goods. Okay, so that is what they say is demand. Demand is an economic principle referring to a consumer's desire to purchase goods and services. That is one thing. It could be services as well. Now I give an example of good, but it could be related to service as well. Maybe, for instance, let's say I want to go on a tour. Maybe I want to go on a trip to, maybe let's say, Maldives. So there you are not purchasing anything as such, but it would be a service. So you want to do that. If it is only limited to desire, then it won't be a demand, because I may desire 100,000 things, but am I ready to pay for all those 100,000 things? Of course not. We would have heard this statement often. Wants are unlimited, but the means through which we can satisfy those wants are always limited. My want as a human being will never be satiated. I will always want more and more. But will I have enough money to satisfy every need or want? Of course not. So unless that desire or want, whatever it is backed up by purchasing power, it can never be considered as demand. Okay. So now they say, first of all, desire to purchase goods and services, and willingness to pay a price for a specific good or service. If you're not intending to purchase or pay for a specific service, then how can we even consider that as demand? So demand should always be backed up, or rather your desire to purchase or avail some service should always be backed up by your willingness to pay price. Okay, so that is something which we should never forget. Otherwise, then there is no demand, it's just some wish. Now let us see what exactly they say in this section, that is law of demand. According to the law of demand, other things being equal, this is very important. So they say other things being equal. So whenever they say other things being equal, what they are trying to tell us is there are various assumptions which we are making while proposing this particular theory of demand. So that's why they say if all the other things remain same or equal, then maybe this rule will be applicable, or this rule is possible, or this thing is possible. Okay, let us see what exactly they are referring to. They say, according to the law of demand, other things being equal, if the price of a commodity falls, the quantity demanded of it will rise. So that means, let's say you want to buy lemon. Now you visit a store, the shopkeeper tells you, or rather you inquire the price for 3 lemons. He will tell you 3 lemons will cost you 24 rupees, let's say. Then you only have 20 rupees. Now how many lemons would you buy? Only 2, because you have limited means here. Now if at all, if that fellow, the shopkeeper, tells you 3 lemons will cost you only 10 rupees, in that case maybe you will buy more than 3. Obviously you will definitely buy 3, but maybe you might buy more than 3 as well. So here, so that is the essential principle of law of demand, wherein we say if the price of a commodity falls, the quantity demanded of it will rise. So the inverse is also applicable. That is, if the price of the commodity rises, obviously the quantity demanded will decline. For example, I have only 10 rupees in my pocket and I visit a vegetable store thinking that I will get 2 lemons for this price. So right now the quantity demanded inside my mind is 2 lemons, and the price, rather the money which I have is 10 rupees. As soon as I inquire about the lemons, the shopkeeper tells me you can only get 1. Why so? Because the price of the commodity has risen, so therefore the quantity demanded has obviously declined. So last week I could buy 2 lemons for 10 rupees, but this week I am unable to buy 2 lemons, so therefore the demand has come down for that particular commodity. That is what they say. It implies that there is an inverse relationship between inverse. So if one goes up, the other goes down. That is what they mean by inverse relationship. So inverse relationship exists between what and what? Between the price of a commodity and the quantity demanded of a commodity. That means if one goes up, the other will obviously come down. If the price goes up, the quantity demanded will come down. Likewise, if the price goes down, then the quantity demanded will be up. So that is the inverse relationship which we see in case of law of demand. So again, as I said, it is all based on certain assumptions. That's why they say other things being equal, quantity demanded will be more at lower price. So whenever the price of a good is lower, then obviously there will be more demand compared to when the price is higher. If the price is high, the demand will be less. If the price is more, the demand will be high as well. If the price is less, then the demand will be high. If the price is more, the demand will be less. Excuse me. The law of demand describes the functional relationship between price and quantity demanded among various factors affecting demand. So, of course, they are also expressing through a formula wherein they say dx is equal to function of px, wherein we are considering price as a major factor. So that's what they say. Price of a commodity is the most critical factor. Of course, there are other things which determines the demand, but more than anything else, it is the price which determines the demand. So they have given an example. So something, so some commodity, have they mentioned which one? They haven't mentioned. Okay, let's see. Price per can, some item, if it is 80 rupees, then the quantity demanded is 0. As you can see, when the price is coming down, the quantity demanded is actually increasing. When it was 80, no one bought anything of this particular commodity because probably they thought it is too much. And when it came down to 70, you could see that there was some demand. From 0, it has now increased to 200. Then again, with the subsequent decrease in the price, there is again increase in the quantity demanded. Likewise, it goes on up to 10, in fact up to 0 as well. When there is absolutely no charge for that particular commodity, there is some significant demand. Obviously you can see the trend here. The demand is definitely increasing as opposed to the price, which is definitely decreasing. So this is the inverse relationship between demand and supply. One goes up, the other one will obviously come down. Next, the same thing has been depicted in the form of a graph here. So let us try to understand this graph. So price per can is mentioned here. Okay, so in the y-axis and the x-axis we have quantity per week. So let us see what exactly is happening. As the price is rising from 20 to 40 to 60 to 80, the demand for the product is coming down. If you look at this, at level 80, the demand is very less, isn't it? But if the price has come, if let's say it comes down to 60, in that case there is some demand, that is 400 units. Further reduction of price increases further quantity demanded. Likewise, when the quantity demanded, the price is 20, the quantity demanded is 1200, and finally when the price is 0, the quantity demanded is 1600. So this is the quintessential demand curve, wherein we say on the y-axis we have the price, on the x-axis we have the demand. So demand will be sloping like this. So this is something which you have to remember. Downward sloping curve. Next. Now, as I said earlier, other things being same, all as if I have to quote the same words, other things being equal, that is the essential thing which they mentioned even before mentioning the law of demand. That means there are certain assumptions. So now we are looking at those assumptions when we propose the law of demand. The above stated law of demand is conditional. That means it is not universally applicable in all the situations. There are certain conditions which we assume already exist. If those conditions are there, then you can say, of course, law of demand is applicable. If those conditions or assumptions are not present, then we cannot say that law of demand exists in such a situation. So that's why they say it is always stated with the other things being equal. So if you miss out on that, then it gives out a signal wherein we may, the other rather the person who is hearing the law for the first time might think that this law of demand will always work. No law will always work, especially in economics, because everything is subjective and it depends on the situation as well. So now that's why we have all these qualifiers. So let us look at these qualifiers, because price is not the only thing which will determine the demand, because other things are also there. But of course, as I said earlier, price is the most significant thing which will determine the demand. So now what are these other things? No change in consumers' income. That is the first assumption which they are making. Now if there is any change in the consumer's income, even if the price falls, there won't be any change, or in fact it might go other way if the income of the consumer also falls. For instance, let's say the price of one particular commodity has fallen from 100 rupees to 50 rupees, whereas according to law of demand, the demand should have gone up from, let's say, 10 units at 100 to 30 units at 50 rupees. But what happened here was, the person who was supposed to buy this particular commodity, or the group of people who were supposed to buy this commodity, they all lost their jobs. Now if they lose their jobs, it doesn't really make any difference if your commodities price has come down or not. If they were buying 10 units at 100 rupees, maybe they will still buy 10 units at 50 rupees also, because now there is loss of income for the consumer. So this is one assumption wherein we say the consumer will still be earning the same amount. So in that situation, we will apply this law. Next, no change in consumers' preferences. This is something which we see often. The price of a commodity comes down, still there won't be any increase in the demand for that particular commodity. What might be the reason? One of the reasons might be that the consumer no longer prefers that. Maybe the consumer's preference has gone to a substitute. Maybe I liked commodity X. Now that commodity Y has come to market, I don't care whether the price of the commodity will come down or go up. Let's say if you look at the phones, the most premium phones in the markets right now, whichever market you consider, European, American, Indian market, iPhone. Now, is there any other phone which can come close to it? Of course not. So now, even let's assume for a second that Nokia, the erstwhile mobile champion, they come back with some totally new phone with a totally new operating system, which is far better than iPhone. Now, in such a situation, even if the price of Apple's iPhone comes down, people may not buy that because now we have a new champion, Nokia. Of course, the exact same thing happened way back in 2007 2008, but of course the roles were reversed. Nokia was the champion. People wanted to buy Nokia phones back then, but all of a sudden there was a new entrant in the market, which was Apple company's iPhone. As soon as that phone came and people saw what exactly it could do, the preference of the people changed. No matter what Nokia did, Nokia couldn't recapture the market like it had earlier. So preferences matter a lot, not just the price of the commodity. Next, no change in the fashion. It is slightly related to this only. If some goods if they go out of fashion, then people do not want to be seen with such type of goods. Or maybe if they think that other people will consider them out of fashion or not fashionable enough, in such a circumstance they just don't care whether the price of the good has increased or decreased. No change in the price of related goods. That means, let's say the price of vehicles have come down drastically. All four-wheelers, the prices have been slashed by 20%. Let's assume maybe the government has reduced the GST rates for all the vehicles. But if the petrol price increases by 50%, if it was 94 per liter earlier, maybe now it is 138 or something, some random amount for 1 liter. In such a circumstance, why would anyone buy any four-wheeler? Because they would think twice before even buying a four-wheeler or even two-wheeler for that matter, because the vehicle price might have come down, but you will have to feed the vehicle, of course, through petrol or diesel, the prices of which have increased. So now prices of related goods, if they remain constant, then it is fine. But if they increase and the actual goods price comes down, then the law of demand may not work. Maybe the demand for the vehicle will be consistent or it may even go down. No expectation of future price changes or shortages. This is very important. Sometimes what happens, even though the price of a particular commodity is decreasing, let's say from 100 to 50 to 40, but still the people are not ready to buy more of it because there is some rumor in the market that this particular company will ultimately reduce the price to 30 rupees. When you are expecting future price changes, when you know in future this company will anyway come down to 30 or rather reduce the product's price to 30 rupees, why would you purchase more when you can purchase at that price level? So this is something which happened with one of the computer companies. I don't remember which one. I guess it is Intel. I'm not so sure. One of those American companies. They had come out with a processor or a computer way back in 80s. It was a very popular one, but there was very little demand for this because somewhere someone had leaked out saying that the price of this commodity will come down, or they had leaked out saying that there will be a new model which will release very soon. In such a case, the future expectation about a product will definitely not support the law of demand. Next, no change in size, age, composition and sex ratio of the population. That means the population which is actually striving the demand of that particular product, they don't change. If they change, then obviously the tastes will also change. So we have to consider that whoever was consuming the product at X price will also be consuming the product at X minus something price. Otherwise, then again we'll have to look at the product from a whole different angle. No change in the distribution of income and wealth of the community. Again, it's related to our first point, wherein we say the consumer's income doesn't decrease. Or no change. When we say no change, it may be increase or decrease as well. But obviously, if it decreases, the consumer will not have enough purchasing power to buy the goods even at reduced prices. So we'll do one thing. I'll just take a couple of minutes break. So then we will continue further. Okay, welcome back. Let's move on to the next condition. No change in the range of goods available to the consumers. We already covered this example more or less. As I said, the same Nokia and Apple example can be considered here. Nokia was at one point of time on top of the mobile division sales. Now, with the sudden introduction of Apple, even though the company tried to reduce the prices, it could never pick up the demand. No change in the distribution of income and wealth of the community. Again, this is also related to this consumer's income. No change in government policy. Sometimes this will affect, even though the price has come down, maybe the demand isn't picking up because the government has changed the policy. Let's say all of a sudden the government says only electric vehicles will be given licenses, or rather registration certificates, RCs. Now if all of a sudden government comes out with a policy, then even if you reduce the price of, let's say, diesel or petrol vehicles, who will buy those vehicles? Because the government is saying we are giving a registration certificate only for new electric vehicles, or maybe they say for electric vehicles we are not charging anything for registration certificate, but for diesel or petrol we are charging 10,000 rupees for registration. In such a circumstance, maybe people may back down from purchasing diesel or petrol vehicles, because even though the price of those commodities have come down, because there is some additional cost involved, or maybe 10,000 may be insignificant for those four-wheeler purchases, maybe let's say 100,000 or 1 lakh. Anyway, so this is the point I'm trying to make, that if the government intervenes and tries to do something with respect to that particular product whose price has come down, then the price may not affect the demand. So we should look at the government policy in detail, only then we'll understand. No change in weather conditions. So that is there again. It's not a very important point. Anyway, let's move to the exceptions to the law of demand. So sometimes all other things being equal, that is with all the assumptions on place, even then the law of demand may not work. So when exactly it is? Let us look at few situations. Given goods, they say. So in case of given goods, law of demand will not work. Why? We'll see. In the case of certain inferior goods called Giffen goods, named after Sir Robert Giffen, an economist, what does it say? When the prices fall, quite often less quantity will be purchased than before. This is very interesting. If earlier I used to purchase at 100 rupees 50 units, when the price has come down to 50 rupees, I'm actually purchasing only 25 units. So this happens very rarely, not with all the goods, but those goods which people think are not essential, or with the decrease in the price, their preference shifts elsewhere. So let's see what exactly they say. Quite often less quantity will be purchased than before because of the negative income effect and people's increasing preference for a superior commodity. Now that the price of the good has come down, maybe people do not want to associate with that particular commodity. They don't want to be seen as those who are purchasing this particular commodity because the price has come down. Maybe they want to shift to something else. So in such a circumstance, law of demand will not apply. In fact, it works in reverse mode. That means you decrease the price and less people will consume it. So they have given few examples like bread, rice and wheat. And it doesn't mean that just because they have given the example bread, rice and wheat, it will always apply to bread, rice and wheat. In some circumstances, it will apply to these three commodities. Maybe at some point of time, people used to buy a lot of bread, but when the price of the bread came down to such an extent that then they realized, why simply buy bread? We can as well buy rice, and they started buying rice or maybe wheat. So it all depends on other circumstances as well. Again, even the exceptions to the law of demand are not universal. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to the second exception, which is articles of snob appeal. What is a snob appeal? Let's read. Sometimes certain commodities are demanded just because they happen to be expensive or prestige goods and have a snob appeal. Okay. What are the words which they say used to express this particular thing? Expensive, prestige, snob appeal. Some people buy certain goods only to satiate their status. Like for instance, let's say diamonds. Diamonds are not required for our day-to-day living, even gold for that matter. Now, someone wants to buy gold or diamonds or maybe a very expensive car, let's say BMW. Now, if someone has already made up their mind to buy a BMW just to show off, just to tell the world that they have a BMW, it doesn't really matter to them if the price of that particular commodity, that is BMW in this case, has increased from let's say 25 lakhs to 30 lakhs, because they've already made up their mind. I want to purchase this not for satiating my need or want, but to make sure that I make a statement wherein I can show off saying I have that much money and I want to buy this. Good for them. But the thing here is law of demand won't work. Okay, because they have this urge to buy prestige or expensive goods. They satisfy the aristocratic desire to preserve exclusiveness for unique goods. That means they want to show that not all of us have these items, so we are in possession of this particular item, so we are slightly different from the rest. So in such a circumstance, when people buy for showing off or for snob appeal, then law of demand obviously will not work. Speculation. This is interesting actually. When people speculate about changes in the price of commodity in future, they may not act according to the law of the demand at present price. So I already gave an example of Intel. I'm not so sure if it is Intel. Most likely it is. But when Intel came out with a product, a very good product in 80s, the demand for the product did not rise, even though they reduced the price, because people thought maybe Intel will come out with the next version, or Intel will reduce the price of this version in next 6 months. when you say so, or when the company issues such statements, obviously people will be expecting a better version or reduction in price, and they will not buy that particular commodity even though the price has come down. So that is the thing. When people speculate about future, all these things will happen. So when people are convinced that the price of a particular commodity will rise further, they will not contract the demand with the given prices. On the contrary, they may purchase more for the purpose of holding. So that means, if at all you think that the price of this particular commodity will increase in future, you may not hold. But if you think that this particular okay, what they're saying is, when people are convinced that price of a particular commodity will rise still further, they will not contract the demand with the given prices. On the contrary, they may purchase. Okay, now I understood. So let's say this is the graph. Right now the price is 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 30 rupees. The price of the product has already increased from 10 to 20. But now when the product price increases to 40, they say more people might buy at 40 than people have bought at 30. If the demand for product at 30 was this, maybe the demand for product at 40 will be this, which is surprising because demand curve says it's a right side downward sloping curve. But in this circumstance, even though price has increased from 40 to 30, we can see that there is increase in demand. Why so? Because people expect the price to increase further. So in such a circumstance, what will they do? They will hold that particular commodity, meaning they will save more of that commodity just to overcome further increase in the price. Maybe the price of this good will increase to 50, 60, 70, etc. I wish to hold more, or I wish to have more of that particular commodity, so that even if the price hits 70, I'll be saved. We see this behavior very often whenever there is news of petrol price change. If people get to know that tomorrow the petrol price will be instead of 105, 125, as it is, the petrol prices have been increasing. In the last 10-15 days, it has increased some 10-15 times. Maybe from 95, it has increased to 105. What should be the behavior of people according to law of demand? They should consume less of petrol because the price has increased. So this is the thing which they are supposed to do. Less as the price increases. But in this case, they will actually buy more because there is speculation or there is news that government intends to increase the petrol price by 20 rupees. If that is the case, just to make sure that they have enough, they will hold. Hold is when you just collect goods, okay, even though you don't have any use of it. Anyway, so then we have finally the final exception, that is consumer's psychological bias or illusion. So again, this is purely subjective. I won't get into that. Let's move on to the next law, that is law of supply. Let's read what exactly they say about supply. Supply again is one of the essential components of demand as well. Unless we have enough supply of goods, even if there is demand, then people will not have enough goods to buy that. For example, this used to happen with one of the prominent two-wheeler manufacturers in the country, that is Royal Enfield. I'm sure you would have heard of this situation, wherein people were actually interested in buying the vehicle, but they didn't have sorry about that. There was no enough supply of the vehicle in the market. If the supply itself is less, then how will anyone even be able to buy, even though there is a huge demand for that? Anyway, let's see what exactly they say with respect to law of supply. Supply represents how much the market can offer. How much the market can offer. So if you may intend to buy 10, but is the market offering you 10 items? For example, with respect to what is that vaccines, last year COVID vaccines, there was huge demand. People were ready to pay the price, even premium. Even though the government had arranged for free vaccination facility, there were many people who were getting the vaccine in private hospitals. Why? Because people knew that there is very little supply of this particular item. Doesn't really make any difference to them whether it is charged or free of cost. Okay. Anyway, Let's see what exactly the law of supply says. The quantity supplied refers to the amount of good producers are willing to supply. How much they are willing to supply when receiving a certain price. At this price, let's say I am a producer, I am only ready to produce or supply or offer to the market only this much of quantity. Why? Because if the price is only this much, why should I sell more? Because I'm anyway not making profit, or I'm making very less profit. Let's say the price is more, then maybe I will supply more because I'll make more profit. So maybe I'm just giving an example. The supply of a good or service refers to the quantities of that good or service that producers are prepared to offer for sale for a set price over a period of time. I know the price as a producer. I know this price will sustain over a period of, let's say, 3 months, 4 months, etc. So if that is the case, I will offer this much of goods, or I will supply this much of goods over the next 3-4 months, because I know with that price I can make enough money. Supply means a schedule of possible prices and amounts that would be sold at each price. If the price is X, I will supply maybe Y quantity. If the price is X minus 1, maybe I will still supply Y quantity. If the price is X minus 5, then I will obviously supply Y minus something else quantity, because now it has come down so much that I don't have the initiative, I don't have the urge to supply so much. The supply is not the same concept as the stock of something in existence, because in case of supply, we'll have to manufacture, the producer has to offer. For example, the stock of commodity in X in Delhi means the total quantity of commodity X in existence. That means it's already made. Okay, stock means something which has already been manufactured or ready or prepared. Whereas the supply of commodity means that something will be offered for sale in the market for a specific period of time. That means we know even in future we will get at this particular price itself. That is when we say it is supply. Now let us look at law of supply, what exactly it states. What does it say? The law of supply says a firm will produce and offer to sell greater quantities. Firm, it could be any business, proprietary concern, partnership firm, etc., will produce and offer to sell greater quantities of product or service as the price of that product or service rises, all other things being equal. That means here also we are making certain assumptions. We'll come to that in a minute. But let us try to understand the law of supply. They say the firm need not necessarily refer only to a partnership firm. It could be a firm as such, or it could be a proprietary concern. We are only referring to the business as such, or it could be a company also. But what they're essentially telling us is the producer, whoever is that, will offer to sell greater quantities. Why greater quantities? Because I know if the price increases, I'll make more profit. That is what they are saying. If the product or service price rises, I will offer more quantity. If the product or services price comes down, I will offer less quantity to the market. So here, as you may have already witnessed, there is a direct relationship between price and the quantity supplied. If one increases, the other will also increase. So this is called direct relationship. Whereas in case of law of demand, it was the inverse relationship which was working there. Thus, the price rise leads to increase in supply and not otherwise. So this is very, very important. So what they're trying to say is, if the price rises, it leads to increase in supply and not the otherwise. Meaning, just because there is more supply, it doesn't mean the price will increase. In fact, the reverse will happen. I'll give you an example. Let's say, let's take the example of lemon itself, because that is the hot topic now. Now every farmer knows, or every producer rather, knows that the price of lemon has increased. Now what would anyone do? I, as a supplier, let's assume I'm a supplier or a farmer who is growing lemon. I already know that lemon has X amount of price. There is huge demand for lemon. I will try to grow lemon. Of course, it's not an easy process. Of course, any growing process will take some time. But in this case, we are throwing out all the realities. We'll assume that I will offer lemons very next week to the market. Now, I will not be the only person doing that. and every other grower would also have observed the market, and they would also want to get huge profits by selling lemon at premium. Now, if there were 10 suppliers of lemon earlier who could supply only 1000 tons every day, the price of the product remained, let's say, at 200 or 200, let's assume 200 per kg, okay, or 2000 per kg. Now only 1000 kilos are available in the market. Now that the price of the lemon has increased, maybe there are more growers like me who want to supply more lemon so that they can also encash this premium price, 2000 rupees per kilo. Now there will be 30 suppliers, but the market wherever they are serving only needs, let's say, 1200 kgs of lemon. Now all these 30 suppliers this is addition, there are additional 30 suppliers, they bring additional 3000 kgs. Now lies the problem. What will happen now? Because there is too much supply, the price will actually come down. First, the producer tried to supply more. Why? Because of the law of supply. What does it say? If the price of the commodity increases, the producer will actually offer more because he wants to make more money. But if there are multiple producers who will be thinking the same thing, and if they supply to the market enough number of lemons which actually goes beyond the demand, in such a circumstance, law of supply will not work. Okay, so because then if there is more supply, the price will actually come down. We would have seen this with tomatoes as well, because too many growers are growing tomatoes would be thrown around on the road and the price would actually come down. Okay, so this is very important, this particular statement. So why would producer be ready to supply more at higher prices? Because obviously they'll be able to make more money. Let's read what exactly the reference material has to say. It may be noted that at higher prices there is a greater incentive to the producers or firms to produce and sell more. Other things include cost of production, change of technology, prices of inputs, etc, etc, etc. These are the things which are required or important for producer to consider even before supplying X number of goods. Okay, basically what they are trying to sell is, more the money, the more supplier would be happy, because he will anyway get huge profits if the price of the commodity has increased. Thus, ceteris paribus, other things being equal, what do they say? With an increase in the price of good, the producer is willing to offer more quantity in the market for sale. If the price of the commodity increases, the producer will say, I will supply more because I know I can make more profit now. Then, the quantity supplied is related to specified time interval over which it is offered. Again, I will have to give the tomato example. The demand was there last week when there was limited supply of tomatoes to the market. Demand for tomato is not there this week because there is huge supply of tomato in the market. When that is the case, why will the price even increase? Okay. The law of supply is the microeconomic law that states that all other factors being equal, as the price of good or service increases, the quantity of goods or services that suppliers will offer also increase, and vice versa. Anyway, so that was about law of supply. Let's look at the assumptions here. Again, similar assumptions are made here also, like we had assumptions in law of demand. So what are the things? No change in the state of technology, we have seen there. No change in the price of factors of production. That means whatever is the raw material required to produce your particular item, the price of that is not changed. Or actually, in fact, factors of production here need not be referring to raw materials. It could be like let's say capital. I need capital, no? If I have to produce more, I will need capital, I will need labor, I will need raw materials, of course. That is one of the factors. Now, if there is increase in price of these commodities, wherein if I have to bring in more capital and if I have to pay high rate of interest, then I will wonder, even if the price has increased, that will be offset by the interest which I am paying to bring in this capital. Or I may also wonder, thinking, I want to produce more of lemon, but the labor which is involved in producing lemon has also, that price also has increased. What is the point even? Because I will sell more and more of lemons and ultimately end up paying only the laborers. So if that is the case, why should I struggle so hard just to pay one of the factors of production? So that is very important. No change in the number of firms in the market. This I have already covered. No change in the goals of the firm. Not very important. No change in the seller's expectation regarding future prices. So the seller is the one who actually gets it from the, what is it? Okay, in this case, what they're trying to say is seller means the vendor himself or the manufacturer himself. So if he thinks in future it will in fact increase more, maybe he will say, let it increase more, then I'll supply to the market. He himself might hold. So that situation may also exist. No change in tax and subsidy policy of the products. Again, this is self-evident. No change in the price of other goods. Okay, this we already see. So this is the essential law of supply, wherein the producer is happy to supply more when the price actually increases. So you can see here supply, law of supply, which is going in opposite direction with respect to law of demand. So here if you look at the price, as price increases, the quantity supplied has also increased. Whereas in case of law of demand, as price increases, the quantity demanded will come down. So this is law of supply, law of demand. Okay, so now there is this intersection. So let's see what exactly they're saying about that. At equilibrium, there is no shortage or surplus unless a detriment of demand or detriment of supply changes. So determinant means one of the factors affecting demand or supply. So here this is the equilibrium point wherein the law of demand and the law of supply actually intersect. So they say there is no shortage or surplus. That means perfect amount of goods are being supplied. Of course, this equilibrium is not easily achieved. Market will of course try to correct on its own, but once that equilibrium is achieved, doesn't mean that it will always remain the same. It keeps on fluctuating. So from today it may move to a different equilibrium position tomorrow, but at that point what we trying to say is whatever the quantity demanded, the quantity supplied is also the same. So when people are okay with that price. Okay, let's look at, there is a table here. You can check it out later. I won't get into that because it's fairly obvious. Let's move on to the next topic, that is elasticity of demand. This is interesting. Let's read what exactly they say about elasticity. This is nothing but the responsiveness, the degree of responsiveness with respect to change in the price. How are people or consumers rather responding to change in the price of the commodity? Are they responding correspondingly? That means if the price changes by 10%, is the market also expecting more of commodity to the extent of 10%, or is it remaining static, or are they expecting less of that commodity with increase in price or decrease in price? We'll see all those in case of elasticity of demand. So in this topic, what will we learn? We'll try to understand the degree of responsiveness. That means how is the market responding to this particular change in the demand. The demand elasticity or elasticity of demand, however you wish to call, refers to how sensitive the demand for a good is to changes in other economic variables such as prices and consumer income. So just because the prices come down by 10%, how much quantity or how much more quantity is demanded of a particular product? Demand elasticity is calculated as the percentage change, or you can even say delta, in the quantity demanded. Delta quantity, that means we were demanding X quantity, now we are demanding Y quantity. So what is the percentage change? We'll have to of course deduct one from the other and then divide by the original quantity. Demanded by a percent change in another economic variable. So what we are trying to compare here is whatever is the changes in demand, is it same as changes in another economic variable. Another economic variable could be anything, but mostly it would be price. A higher demand elasticity for an economic variable means that the consumers are more responsive to changes in this variable. That means if you change the price of the commodity, the consumers might come down drastically with respect to demand. Then we say there is huge elasticity. Okay, so otherwise there won't be any elasticity at all. Elasticity of demand is the responsiveness of the quantity demand. Again, it's a repetition, I won't get into that. So let's look at the formula here. The price elasticity, here we are now specifically referring price elasticity. Earlier we were referring to elasticity with respect to all the factors of or rather variable factors, whereas here we are only referring to price elasticity. That means how is the demand responding to the changes in the price of the particular commodity. Let's read. The price elasticity of demand is the response of the quantity demanded to change in the price of commodity. It is assumed that the consumer's income, tastes and prices of all the other goods are steady. Okay. It is measured as a percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Again, we can say delta. Delta is only referring to change in the quantity demanded. So now delta Q, delta P, or you can also write it this way: change in quantity by original quantity. Let's say earlier I used to buy 50, now I am buying 100. Earlier the price was let's say 200, but now the price has come down to 150. So this is the old demand, this is the new demand, this is the old price, no, this is the new price. So now if you have to substitute the same in the formula, it would be change in quantity 100 minus 50 divided by original quantity. Original quantity is 50 multiplied by original price, which is let's say 200, divided by change in price, which is 200 minus 150. So this would be the equation. You can simplify it, you will get the elasticity of demand. Of course, there are different types of elasticity which they explain, like perfectly elastic demand, which I explained. If there is 10% decrease or increase in the price of the commodity, there will be 10% increase or decrease in the demand for that as well. Okay, sorry, this is not the same thing, this is slightly different. When a small change in the price of a product causes a major change, okay, this is not perfectly elastic, that is unitary elastic. When a small change in price of product, let's say the price of product comes from 100 to 99, okay, then a major change in its demand. So at 100 we are consuming, let's say 5 units, but when it comes to 99, people are ready to consume 15 units. Small change but drastic change in demand. So that is said to be perfectly elastic demand. Okay, so they have given some similar example. Perfectly inelastic demand. So a perfectly inelastic demand is one where there is no change in quantity produced in the demand of a product with a change in price, meaning no matter what the change in the prices, we are not demanding more of this, we are still demanding X of this. For example, salt. I do not want to buy kgs and kgs of salt just because the price of the salt has come down. I used to buy, let's say, 1 kg of salt per month. I will still buy 1 kg of salt per month because I only need that much. If that is the case, why should I buy 10 kgs because the price has come down? No, I won't do that. Okay. Next, relatively elastic demand, wherein they say proportionate change in the demand is greater than proportionate change in the price of the product. That means the price of the product has come down from 100 to 99, whereas the demand has gone up from 50 to 75. So the proportionate change in the demand is more compared to the proportionate change in the price. Okay, so that is what we say relatively elastic demand. Next, think of the examples, that way you'll be able to remember. So unless you express in terms of examples, it will be difficult for you to remember, because at the end of the day you'll have to remember stuff in exam, because whether you like it or not, more often than not, the format of the exam which we conduct here in India is mostly based on memory. So you'll have to remember stuff. What is the easiest way to remember stuff? Read repeatedly. That is the only way. If you think there is any other way to remember, I don't think that is possible, but stick to it. But the best way to remember stuff is to read more and more. Next, relatively inelastic demand. That means percentage change produced in demand is less than the percentage change in the price of the product. That means the price of the product has come down drastically. The reverse of this example. The price of the product has come down from 100 to 50, whereas the demand earlier was, let's say, 90. Now because the price is slashed by 50%, the demand is also not increasing by 50%, but it is increasing only to 100. Earlier it was 90, the commodity demanded was earlier the price was 100, the commodity demanded was 90. Now the price has come down to 50, but the quantity demanded is just 100, not too much of difference. So that is called relatively inelastic demand. Then there is unitary elastic demand, the example for which I gave earlier when I was discussing perfectly elastic, wherein we say if the price comes down by 10%, demand will also come down by 10%, and vice versa, wherein we say if the price goes up by 10%, demand will also go up by 10%, wherein elasticity is equal. No matter how much there is change in demand, the quantity no matter how much there is change in price, quantity demanded will also increase or decrease to the same extent. So there are few factors affecting price elasticity of demand. So we'll be closing the session earlier today, so I'll wind up now. Tomorrow I'll be continuing from factors affecting price elasticity of demand. So before we wind up, I would like to quickly remind you, so this is Ekcel Academy. We conduct classes for company secretary course, for foundation, that is CSEET, as well as for executive and also professional. So if you haven't already signed up on our website, that is excelacademy.com with K in Excel, please do it now, because you will get lots of material. There will be hand holding by the mentors, of course, that is if you take up the course, but even otherwise there are various goodies which are available, like free stuff of updates, maybe MCQs and other notes, which are available only if you register. So please do sign up on our website. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed to Ekcel Academy, please do subscribe for, of course, constant updates, which again is free of cost. You don't have to pay. See you tomorrow, same time, that is 7:30. We'll complete chapter 1 and we'll proceed to chapter 2 as well. So today only we are ending earlier. Okay, so see you tomorrow at 7:30 for CSEET crash course. Thank you for joining. Bye guys.